Welcome to CX&Chill, the real, raw customer experience podcast by Exo Studios, the creative arm of XtendApps. Join us as today's host, Diana Castañeda, engages in a thought-provoking conversation with Marcos Souza, Global Talent and L&D of Engineering at Nubank. Get ready for an insightful talk on the intriguing relationship between humans and artificial intelligence, the definition of human touch, and samba lessons. Enjoy.
In the time since this episode was recorded, Marcos has embarked on an exciting new journey in his career. He has taken on the role of Tech Learning Manager at Serasa Experian. We congratulate Marcos on his new role and wish him continued success on this exciting career path.
Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Exo CX&Chill. I'm feeling very tropical today because we have a very special guest today. He's coming from a country that I have a deep love and passion for. It's Brazil, or how we would say Brazil. I want him to describe himself and introduce him, and he will do it in Portuguese. But what I want to know, for you guys to know about this person, he's deeply caring about integrating tech with global talent and people development. So those are two things that you usually say, how the hell am I going to do that? Who does that? So he does it, and he's going to tell us. So welcome, bem-vindo.
The first big challenge here.
In Portuguese.
So, Portuguese. So the first thing is that we have this thing with the R sound in Portuguese. So we will say Brasil.
Brasil.
Something like this, Brasil. Okay, let's do it in Portuguese then. Eu venho de São Paulo, moro na capital. Já estou trabalhando na área de tecnologia, mais focado em learning e development, treinamento e desenvolvimento, já há quase 13 anos, um pouco mais de 12 anos, quase 13. E eu tenho uma grande paixão que é conectar com pessoas. E eu venho fazendo isso a decorrer da minha vida, aliás, de diversas formas, né? Não só profissionalmente, mas através da dança, que é uma das minhas paixões, através de conectar de fato com pessoas, tanto para o progresso pessoal e para o meu crescimento profissional também. Então, muito obrigado. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you. It's a pleasure. I'm very excited about that.
I'm super excited to get to know a little bit more the behind the scenes of Marcos. So why don't we get started with how on earth did you realize that you have this special touch to, like combine technology, that people development, global talent, and you go to those deep levels of, like you have worked with companies like Facebook, Nubank now, and it's like, how do you integrate all of these tech things and the tech profiles with what the people essence is, right? So tell me a bit more of your career. Where do you come from? And then just mix in there, like, who are you? What are your hobbies? Because I know there are things that I would like to touch on that.
Okay. So first thing before going to hobbies, you've lived in Brazil for almost 3 years,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
So the most important question for you about Brazil is, have you learned how to samba?
I tried. I mean, everybody thinks that they can dance in Latin America because you have like these pauses, right? Like if you're from Colombia, you say, I know how to dance. Now, if you go within Colombia, you go to Cali, which is like the capital of salsa. You're like, damn, I don't know how to dance if I'm not from Cali. But if you go to, I don't know, like to the Brazilians, they're like, do you know how to samba? Like, say samba. Then you're like, damn, I don't know.
Okay, so we gotta do this in the end of this episode. Okay.
We'll challenge everyone.
Good. So getting back to your question, this is a very challenging point because technology is something that is always progressing. And if we think about AI, which is a huge topic nowadays, we are talking about thinking about things that in the past we thought to be very futuristic, and machines thinking by itself, and robots and humanoids and things like that. But human will never lose their essence. And I'll give you an example. When we think about customer support in any area, any company. As a customer of my bank and in many other companies, when I need any kind of support, I like to send them a message, and it's not the best experience when you just get a chatbot, for example. So when you think about AI in this area, it's very important when you think about process, when you
Yeah.
think about automate processes. But when we think about people, it doesn't work to trust 100% on AI. And I'll give you a very quick example. Think about Chat GPT. This is something that everyone is using right now. It's very useful, actually. But how would you tell Chat GPT to be empathetic with someone who was walking on the street and got the credit card stolen and called the customer support center? How would you do that?
And you can try it. I've tried. Like I'm very good myself, right? Like I like to try everything and like try the perfection of it, and it's hard. Like I've got into frustration with the Chat GPT. I'm like, that's not what I wanted. This is too hard. I wouldn't sound like this. No, but just put yourself together. Like
This is the thing. It might be the smartest thing on earth,
yeah.
but it doesn't have the human touch.
Right.
So I can teach my team to be empathetic with people. I can teach my team to identify talents and skills and professional abilities and lots of things, even though some of those technologies are progressing to do it in the future. For example, I've learned as a learning program manager for many years. And one thing that we used a lot was AI to identify technical skills. So in the learning area, for example, nowadays you have like platforms like LMS and LXP mainly that has a machine learning behind this. And it learns what kind of course you take on the platform, and it starts to build like your profile when we think about skills. So it might be very useful for this. But again, when me thinking as a leader, when I need to be empathetic to someone, when I need to guide someone's career and give counsels and advices, it's still the best way to do it.
It's like, yeah.
It's still the best way to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And so how do you discover, like I mean, you sound like a master in this, right? Like I'm like, yeah, I'm following, like trying to follow on these learning technology integration. But how did it all start for you? Like what inspired you? How do you get there? Like
That's an awesome question. I've been born in a family who were very united. We really like to spend as much time together as we could. And I had this opportunity to grow in this environment where I could learn a lot from my own family. And luckily, I also grew up in a place where I was surrounded by very successful people as well. And it's not because my family was rich or something like that. We were not. But I just had this opportunity to get to know people and successful people. And my first choice was I need to learn from those people and do not envy their success.
nice.
So
Nice.
if you live or if you have anyone around who is successful in anything, you just need to learn and get inspired from those people. And this was my first choice.
And learning, right? Like what is learning? How would you
Exactly.
define that?
Even because I was just a little kid at that time. And also, even though I was surrounded by people like this, the biggest example I had was inside my own house. We are in 5 brothers, and my eldest brother and my oldest sister, they are both people with disabilities, and they use wheelchair.
Okay.
And they stopped walking still when they were young people. And for my family, it was not so easy to deal with it. For nobody think
Yeah.
it's easy to deal with it.
Right.
But one thing that I really learned from them is that nothing is impossible. It doesn't matter if you are someone with disability, it doesn't matter your race, culture, where you're from, it doesn't matter anything. You can do anything you want as long as you take the first step.
Right.
And just to summarize this story, um, they had lots of difficulties along their lives, but later I saw my sister going to school and getting graduated, and now she works as a psychologist. And I saw my brother going to sports area
Oh,
and
really?
becoming one of the best wheelchair basketball players in Brazil.
Nice.
He was even a founder of one of the best wheelchair basketball teams in Brazil nowadays. So this one, this was something that really made me think like, if they could do this, I can do it. I can do it. So all my inspiration comes from my own house. Even though I was surrounded with successful people and had the opportunity to learn with lots of good leaders in the market, but this is the base of my inspiration.
And so, how do you like? That explains a lot of who you are. um, so, what would be like that kind of advice that you would give to anyone who's listening, and in general, like, what do you think it's going to be like integrating more of this technology, more of this, like process thought of, like learning bad with technology? What would you say, like, how do we adapt, how do we embrace this, because many people are like, oh, I'm scared, I don't want that, oh my god, robots are coming to kill us. I respect those opinions, but it's just I'm curious to know what's in your head about this.
This is a good question. I think you already gave the first answer here. Do not be scared about it. This is something that you cannot deal with. The humanity is progressing more and more, and the progression of technology is something that we cannot avoid. And actually, it's necessary, right? If you want technology to make our lives easier, this is really necessary. But do not be scared of it. And I would say, please try to learn how to use it, all the technology resources to your let's make a pause. I forgot the
Advantage.
word. Advantage. We have this statement in Portuguese: use a seu
Você
favor.
tira aí em português.
Use a seu favor. In the real translation would be use it on your favor, something like that, but use it to your advantage. Take advantage of it. And in the future, in the near future, we will need people who is familiar with technology. We will need leaders and managers who can analyze data, who can extract data from all those technological tools and systems and environments. So more and more, it has been a very strong requirement for people to be more and more technical. So this is something that really helps me a lot. And I've learned, even when I was a young man, I learned how to code. It was
Mr. Coder.
VBA. VBA, it was something to use on Excel.
Yeah.
And then I learned how to code in Java. But all these things, all these steps I took for my benefit, just to help me understand how the world would be. And I had to be prepared for it.
And you know what's funny? Like when you're saying from a very young age, we probably live technology just in a different way, right? Like I remember like...
That's really different actually.
Like the very first time when you saw a computer, like this huge computer, like with huge CPU and whatever.
Windows 95.
Like, that the internet didn't even exist at a time. But then you still, and I'm feeling what you're saying because I just got a flashback into, hey, I used to make PowerPoint presentations about like TV shows or characters or, like The Simpsons in the early stage or songs that I like about me. So I use that tool, as you're saying, like to learn about something. For me, it was like to learn about myself. And then it seems like for you, it was like to be prepared for everything that you were gonna face, and because you understood it, because of your abilities to, like work in this learning environment, like to know what was coming, right? Amazing. That's huge. Like, I don't know, like we might seem young, but yeah, we didn't have
Yeah,
internet back then.
that's it. You got the point. You got the point.
Good. So I'm also curious to know, is there, I'm biased because I'm a woman, but in that career of yours, was there any inspirational leader or any, like mentor or colleague or someone who, like made you feel like, wow, this is different from what I was planning, right? Like I was expecting, planning everything, and boom, something happened. And perhaps, was there any woman there?
Yeah, I actually had very good leaders, and you met some of them actually, but I can think about three people specifically, and they are all women.
Yeah.
And I like to think that when it comes to leadership, it's a very big responsibility because you have people depending on you, on your leadership skills.
Yeah.
And these three people, they taught me and they gave me the opportunity to see on practice, they exercising this role and putting in practice the biggest leadership principles I have learned from my young age. So the first thing I would say is that empathy for a good leader is very important. And I mean genuine empathy. Empathy for me is not just like, okay, so I'm sorry to hear that. I know how you feel.
The scripted version.
Yeah, the chatbot version, but
Yeah.
empathy, genuine empathy, is to sorrow when people are in sorrow and comfort them when they are in need of comfort. So when you really feel what the other feel, when you put yourself in their shoes, this is where you practice genuine empathy.
Right.
And I had this biggest example of empathy in a leader. Are we allowed to mention names here?
Of course.
Okay. So her name is Lizzie Elizabeth Nalik. We used to work together and she was my leader. And this is something that really stands out about her, is that any problem you had, and I had lots of professional and personal problems, and she was someone that made me feel very comfortable to share all these things, all these pains. And I can clearly hear her voice saying, "Oh, really? Oh, what can I do for you? Let me do something for you." And I really felt that was not just saying.
Yeah, just
was,
because,
it wasn't just is a confirmation word in Portuguese.
In Portuguese,
That's it. That's it. It was not just to be nice, She was really feeling what I was feeling. So for me, Lizzie gave this big example of real, genuine empathy. The second person I can think of, we used to work at the same company as Lizzie, but her name is Sonia. And Sonia was one of the best examples I've ever had of someone who gives you guidance and direction. At that time, I was like looking for other opportunities inside the company, and I was pretty new, and I had less than 1 year working at this company with the same team. And my manager said, "Okay, go talk to Sonia. She might be very eager to hear you. She might be very eager to give you some guidance and things like that." She was a manager as well. And I remember every meeting we had, so I made this to set up a frequent meeting with her to get some advice. And I can remember her saying, "Okay, so talk to this person, talk to that
like
person.
connecting and
Connect. That's it. Make the necessary connection." And she gave me all the ways that I should go. And she said, "Okay, so here," she was always focused also in culture. "So here we have this culture. You can do this if you want to be like the head of the area director. You need to go this way and this way." Sonia for me was the best example I had in that sense.
Sonia, we're looking for you.
She's based in New York, by the way, if you want to talk to her. And the third one represents one another big skill that I admire in a leader. Her name is Andrea Augusto. And it's like a very recent experience. She's Brazilian, but she's now living here in Mexico. And Andy was the leader that used to teach by example.
Nice.
For me, this is something very important. A good leader teaches by example. A good leader does not just tell you what to do.
Yeah.
The person takes the front line and show you how to do things and support you and do it with you and do it together. And she was the best one doing this. We had lots of hard times working together with company. At that time, the company was in a pre-IPO period. Everyone was rushing a lot and doing all the things to get ready for the IPO. And I was like recent hired at that time, like 3 months before the
Very
IPO.
fresh.
Can you imagine my mind at that time, like 3 months before the IPO? But I remember her coming and say, okay, so we have this idea, we have this challenge, these goals. What do you think? What can we do to accomplish this? And when we agreed on something, the first thing she used to say is, okay, so let's do this together. She used to take the front line. So these are three of the biggest and best examples I could ever mention to you about women being good leaders in the market.
That's amazing. And you have them like very embedded within you and how they impacted it like at that moment and what they did and how they taught you. And I think that's crucial, regardless if it's, like whatever the gender is. It's just like amazing how people can impact others and connect them and make a true impact, and especially women, because I mean it's hard sometimes in this industry to like to have that remembrance and to scale up and to like position ourselves, but we do it, and the fact that you as a man are able you're able to recognize it and to feel it and transmit it, it's just like it's like peaceful and gratefulness that you can only feel out of that. So that's amazing.
And I think that they are a very good example to avoid this kind of bias we have. Unfortunately, we still have bias and look at those people as people from underrepresented groups. They're not.
Right.
They're just people.
Right.
They're just humans. And some of them, I mean, lots of them, they might be way more skilled than I am for my role, for example. So, and this is something that in the industry, in the technology industry mainly, this is something very, that makes me very worried about, because it's very common today to see people saying, okay, so we need to recognize women and give leadership roles to women and to Black and brown people, and to people with disabilities. Isn't it way easier if we just look to those people as just people?
Because they deserve it. It's not like I don't want nothing because I'm just a woman, but I want you to realize that I do things and I work for them and I deserve and I earn the things too, not just because, she's a woman or she's the minority and she needs to be promoted because of that, because then we're doing it wrong all over the way.
That's it. This is the point. So I think that companies should just not keep talking about this, because we need to talk about this, but we need to do something about this. So it's even better and it's way more effective if we teach our talent acquisition teams and mainly the managers of the organizations to identify talents. And when they interview someone, for example, they should be looking after skills and abilities, not race, color, gender, or anything like that.
Right.
In Brazil, for example, when we talk about the technology industry, women represents only 20% of the population. looking at like in a broader way, when we bring to Latin America, it represents only 6%. I've just had access to these information very recently. It was a study from YouGov. They are a research of data and analysis company, and they just released those numbers. And I was thinking to myself, okay, so if I have a company, technology company, and I hire 100 people, only 6 would be women, and 94 would be men. And it's not enough. So we need to talk about this. We need to, I think it's a work of mindset change. We need to change the mindset of the companies, the leadership of those companies. But we also need to empower programs to identify those talents. Right. Because we live in a society that when we talk about technology, what do you imagine? Like, I'm a tech person. What is the first persona that comes to your mind?
Very boxed, very rigid, very strict, very like, no people skills, no like very, like, I don't know. I see like metal. I don't know why.
Metal, like a nerd person with glasses and things. Yeah. It's completely wrong. Yeah. It's completely wrong. So, we need to identify those people. So right. I've been working with lots of companies, and some of them are some of the big tech companies. And I myself, I've been in the front line for the technical capacitation of some of those underrepresented groups. So I've worked with leaders who led programs like software engineers for Black and brown people, women who code, and things like that. So all the companies should promote and empower those kind of moves and programs to help identify where those talents are. Yeah. And then you need to be prepared to onboard these people, to deliver the correct training, to help them. Sometimes they are just in a career transition. Someone comes from HR. Yeah. For example, I want to be an engineer, software engineer, for example. And the companies needs to have these resources to help people make this transition, the structure, the necessary knowledge.
Sounds amazing. I'm sure we all will take a lot of what you're saying. Your insights are just phenomenal. Like, for sure, we have lots of things to dig into that and to put into practice. I can only say thank you. Obrigada. For the, I sound like obrigada.
Obrigado, with Brazilian accent.
I will just invite everyone to integrate this. Like I'm really resounding with what you're saying. Like, we practice it in EXO. We're like, this is something that we really need to live in a day-to-day basis. But thank you so much for joining me, for talking to everyone today. And before you go, staying wild is what we go by. Staying wild is our core. How do you stay wild?
How do I stay wild? Wow, that's
no Brazil.
Good question. Okay, so for a Brazilian or for someone from Latam, staying wild would mean connecting with people, would be connection, because you're from Colombia, and we tend to be warm. Yeah. We tend to be human. We like the human touch. We like connection, and connect with people.
Nice. Stay well, connect. So that was it for today. Thank you very much for joining us on the CX&Chill episode. We hope you like it again. You don't get charged for putting your like in there. But leave your comments, whatever you want to know about. We'll be checking on it. And thank you very much. Obrigada.
De nada. You're welcome. Thank you so much for this invitation. Very glad to be here. And yes, thank you.
See you guys later.
See ya.
Ciao.
And that's our show. CX&Chill is a production of EXO Studios, the creative marketing arm of XtendOps. With today's host, Diana Castañeda, executive producer Sean McCreary, producers David Spear, Clarissa Coronado, and Memo Davalos, editors and videographers Santiago Aguirre, Alfonso Ramirez, graphic support from Jordan Madrid, and social media guru Claudia Corona.